Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Schomler. This is Strong Opinion Sports, episode 671. And joining me is my kamikaze. What do I call you? Like the saboteur over there trying to ruin my intro. I'm like trying to say something and you're distracted me over there with this Bills sign.
Did that backfire on me? By the way, did that read back? I think that read backwards. At least it looked like it to me.
No, to me, I read Go Bills, but who knows when we actually edited this? I mean, you really ran the risk there. I think that said Go Bills the right way. It read that way to me over the mic. But again, I don't know if that does it flip it again later when we process the episode. I have no idea. So
I hope
anyway, joining me is Nathan Hawthorne, my co-host. Nathan, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's a great day to be a Bills fan.
You're awful. You're terrible, dude.
No, I really am doing great. It was a great weekend. Got to spend it watching football. Got to spend some time with my family up north of the city a little bit. It was great. Doing great.
You mentioned your apartment's really hot right now. Like you're in San Francisco where air conditioning is just not a big thing there.
Correct.
It's often not hot enough for that. You're boiling, I assume, though.
I'm hot. It's 84 degrees in here right now. And we've got fans going and whatnot, but there is no way to cool it down. And that's one of the things, like you said, typically you don't need AC except for about maybe a week out of the year. We just got down here. We don't have like a window AC unit or anything like that we can even pop in. So we are just we're just roughing it right now. Fans on, trying to get as much airflow in here as possible.
What's the humidity? Humidity's at 70%, which isn't great. That's more than Hawaii would be.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna lie to you, dude. 84, like I love 80. I'm cold all the time here. Like, and at 84 and like a t-shirt and some like I used to record the show in Hawaii, like in my underwear, literally. Like I'd put a polo on, underwear on the bottom, no one saw. And it was glorious. I loved it.
See, 84. I love it. You get the little bit of the ocean breeze coming in from the bay. Fantastic. But 84 in your home? I don't think anybody wants that. It's just the most uncomfortable is trying to get to sleep. When you're too hot trying to sleep, there's nothing worse.
I've had trouble in this room specifically. I think we talk about behind me, the sun sets. And so for a couple hours, this room is just boiling. And we have a single stage air conditioner, like PTAC over there, that doesn't blow air very well into this room. I have to like use fans and like push air more in.
Right.
Long story short is this room has been actually the worst room I've ever recorded in for one specific reason. And by the way, weird sidestep, the best room ever, back of my pickup truck. I've never had an easier time recording than my goddamn pickup truck. I loved it. But this room, I think it's because it gets really hot and humid. My camera actually like shuts off all the time. It like has this like error, probably from humidity, and it like turns off. I like can't handle the heat of the room. Like not my computer. Everything else is fine. My effing camera like has a hard time in this room. It's very weird.
You heard it here first, folks. Strong Opinion Sports is bringing entirely too much heat for the cameras to handle.
Oh my gosh.
It's that simple, folks.
Apparently. We debated back and forth what to start today's show with. Ultimately, I think we'll start with Monday Night Football, but that I don't have a lot to say. We watched on Monday night. Kansas City beat New Orleans 26-13. It was kind of a weak weekend for primetime games. Like Sunday Night Football didn't hit very well for me. Monday Night Football was kind of a drag. I don't know if I'm alone in that. I watched this Monday night game. I was engaged the whole time, but I was like, this is kind of a defensive battle. Neither offense is that productive. I thought Kansas City obviously was better. The Saints missed a lot of opportunities. What'd you make of tonight's game? Kansas City beating New Orleans 26-13.
Yeah, I think we just saw a better program. I think we saw a better NFL team, better on defense, better on offense, come out and display that in the most simple form of football. There was nothing incredibly flashy. There was nothing to point to be like, that's the outstanding reason, especially offensively. But yeah, we just saw a better team with a better coach and a better quarterback make more plays. And, without that kind of fluky-ish off the hands interception that ended up turning into some points for the Saints, this is kind of a blowout game. And I think we also saw the Saints have officially come down to earth. Everyone, we got really, really high on them really fast. But if we look back at those wins, a bad Dallas team and a bad Carolina team, both of those games at home, I believe, and they haven't won since. So that's what I saw. It was Kansas City, a better team, better coach, better quarterback, and we're starting to see some of those problems that were prevalent with the Saints last year coming back again this year.
Yeah, I saw first of all, there's an interception by Derek Carr early in this game where
horrible.
Loftus got a ton of pressure. I actually want to say something about this though. I thought Derek Carr was trying to throw the ball away. Maybe I wonder about that. Like he's kind of trying to get out of the pocket. I think he's trying to throw the ball high and out of bounds in the direction of a receiver, so it's not intentional grounding. And he just, I think that's I don't know. It's very possible he is trying to throw a jump ball there into double coverage. Which, if that's the case, that's a terrible decision. I wonder though, that first interception by Derek Carr, was that a throwaway that he missed on? We saw Tua Tagovailoa do that earlier in the year too, where he's like getting out of the pocket, has pressure, tries to throw the ball out of bounds, doesn't quite make it out of bounds. I had that similar energy there. I don't know. Although I guess that's still maybe a bad argument, because if you really want that ball out of bounds, it does go out of bounds. It landed inbounds into double coverage. I don't know. I'd love to ask Derek Carr about that interception.
Yeah. Tua, I think, had some guys on him, and he was trying his hardest to get it out, or he was following. Derek Carr, yes, the pressure was in his face, but he had the strength to get that out of bounds if he was really trying to get it out of bounds.
Yeah. I will say this. I thought this game was reassuring as far as Kansas City. Here's the big thing that stands out to me. Kareem Hunt had 27 carries for 102 yards and a touchdown, so they ran the ball really well.
Yep.
And Juju Smith-Schuster had 7 catches for 130 yards. Now, a lot of that was on one catch for 50-something yards. Might have been actually 50 exactly. A lot of that was one catch, though, I'm trying to say. Regardless, the big narrative in Kansas City this year has been, well, they lost Marquise Brown. Now Rashee Rice is out. There's no real number one receiver there. And
no Isaiah Pacheco.
I'm just feeling like, you know what? That's an overrated narrative. The truth is, as long as they've got Patrick Mahomes, they're going to be okay. It seems like no matter who you put around him, he elevates, no matter who it is, whether it's Xavier Worthy or Juju Smith-Schuster. Travis Kelce is admittedly having kind of a slower year this year. I don't know what that's about. Is it age? Is it matchups? I'm not really sure. But Juju today was the guy who stepped up. Next week, I'm sure it'll be someone else. They just seem like no matter what happens in that lineup, if they've got Mahomes at quarterback, he finds a way to elevate the people around him. And I think by the end of the year, by the way, Xavier Worthy is going to be a bigger contributor, making more and more plays. He's gotten a little more gotten better each week. And I think by the end of the year, going to be a different player. But that's the statement here is, hey, don't worry about Kansas City's offense. It seems like they're fine, basically, no matter what. Would you kind of agree?
Yeah, I'd agree for the most part. I think, I don't know how to say it, because New Orleans is a great defense, but I think once you play those more elite teams that require you to score more, say you have to play the Bengals or you've got to play the Ravens again, like you're going to have to put more points on the board. So that's concerning. But here's the thing that you love is you've got an ultimate run stopper in Chris Jones, who also puts pressure on the pass, and you've got a lockdown corner in McDuffie, who essentially took Chris Olave out of the game. If the Saints are going to get things going on offense, yes, Kamara has to get going, but you have to find a way to unlock Chris Olave. And I don't think his entire career they found a way to consistently do that. Back to Kansas City, like you said, Patrick Mahomes is the greatest elevator of teammates. Juju Smith-Schuster had 960 yards, right? This was 2 years ago. Patriots say, oh, we got to have this guy in our locker room. Great weapon for Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi, whoever's back there, right? He doesn't do anything. Right. And then they end up releasing him towards the end of the training camp this year, comes back to Kansas City, and now he's productive again. Right. And that's coach, that's quarterback. And all of those things truly matter. Like you said, as long as you have those two guys, you're going to be in great shape. I think with Travis Kelce, with the limited weapons they do have, that's the guy that you want to take away. And tonight he still had 9 receptions, albeit only 70 yards, but still made some big plays, a couple of great third down catches, some yards after the catch, helping out Mecole Hardman finish out a second down to avoid third down. So he's still impactful in the game. It's just not going to be, 10 catches, 160 yards, and 2 touchdowns, like we've seen in years past.
I want to talk about the Saints real quick and say this. Their first two, they started the year 2-0. They dominated Carolina. That's not a very impressive win. Now we know they beat the Cowboys 44-19. But you look at their last 3 losses. They lost to Philly by 3. They lost to New Orleans, or lost to Atlanta by 2. They've lost now to Kansas City by 13 by 2 scores. But I don't feel ready to write off the Saints yet. Are they a Super Bowl contender? No, I don't think so. I think that's a realistic thing to acknowledge, but I think they still got a shot to win their division between Tampa and Atlanta and New Orleans. It's a pretty even matchup, in my opinion. Like, they just had a game where they went toe to toe with Atlanta, lost by 2 on a last second field goal. Like, I just
Right.
don't think it's fair. Fair doesn't really matter here, but I guess I don't think they're out of contention yet to win their division. I don't think it goes much beyond that if they do that. And I don't think they're going to win the division. I think Atlanta's a team to beat. I think Tampa's better. But they're hanging in the mix. And I think given the way they've lost recently, some really close battles, I just don't think it's fair to entirely write off New Orleans. They got a huge game next week against Tampa in New Orleans. And that's a bigger game where we're like, hey, let's really find out. 3-3 versus 2-4 is a big difference, especially if you win a division game. So I'm not ready to write off New Orleans just yet, in my opinion.
Yeah, I will say that Philly, Atlanta, and Kansas City have solid defenses. Kansas City and Atlanta being very good defenses. Eagles, actually, no, not a great defense, but maybe in week 3 you could say that, maybe we don't know who's who yet. But my concern is Clint Kubiak's playbook, while he may be coming from the Shanahan tree, I don't think it's quite as deep yet. And I'm not sure if it's because, he's new system. We're trying to get ourselves to do the small things right first, and then we can open some things up. But again, I'm looking at a guy like Chris Olave. I've got to find a way to scheme him open and get him the football. 2 catches for 10 yards isn't going to get the job done. We've got to find ways to get him in better matchups. And outside of that deep ball to Shaheed, there was really nothing going tonight. So my concern is that Kubiak may have already been figured out. And because that play sheet doesn't run as deep, this offense might have a tough time pushing the ball down the field if it's not that deep ball to Shaheed. What's next? What's after that? And we'll have to see. I'm not ready to completely write them off, but right now I've got one foot out the door. I'll say that.
Well, let's look at the rest of the schedule for New Orleans, because next week is Tampa. Then they play Denver in New Orleans. That's a huge game. Sean Payton's return to New Orleans. But then it's at the Chargers. That's a winnable game against a team that LA is they're 2-2 right now. There's a lot to be learned about them still. I have a great feeling they're going to beat the Carolina Panthers in Carolina week 9.
Yeah.
A matchup again against Atlanta is really interesting, where they just lost to them by 2. That's an even matchup. Cleveland's down. They could definitely beat Cleveland. They got a bye week. Then the Rams, the Giants, Washington, who's really hot, then Green Bay, who I feel nervous about in that game. But then the Raiders and Tampa. A lot of winnable games still on the rest of the schedule for the New Orleans Saints. That's why I don't write them off, is if they can win a close game here against the Chargers and maybe Denver and beat Atlanta, like, they're hanging around in the mix, because I think they got a lot of other winnable games outside of those games. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see about 5 of them that are truly winnable. The rest, I just don't think that they have a chance. Like Green Bay, Tampa Bay, I honestly don't think that they win. Atlanta, I think, beats them worse the second time. I think Atlanta's starting to find it. Washington, to me, we'll see with Washington. Dennis Allen is a good defensive coach. You're going to have many, many weeks of film on Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury. What's going to be the thing to kind of slow that offense down? And he'll have a chance to see that potentially happen a few weeks before they play them. Cleveland, Myles Garrett is getting healthy. Hopefully Ward comes back. We don't know. Like you said, I don't think they win the division, but I only see about 5 more wins if they play good football.
Yeah. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app. Use Prize Picks while you watch NFL games this fall, because making picks makes watching games more engaging, and you could turn something like $5 into $50. Prize Picks offers quick and easy deposits. You can even use Apple Pay. So put your skills to the test in daily fantasy. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That is prizepicks.com/CLNS using code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy. Let's now talk about what I thought was the game of the weekend by a mile. The Ravens beat the Bengals 41-38 in overtime. And man, there were even 3 possessions in overtime. Like Lamar Jackson fumbles a snap and you're like, oh my gosh. And then, the Bengals feel like they have the game in the bag and they miss a field goal. That leads to a Ravens, huge, basically Derrick Henry calls game, gets like a 55-yard run down to the 3 or 4 yard line, something like that. They kick a field goal, they win. Um, it was a back and forth game though, and the outcome for the Bengals suck. I want to talk about all that, but I want to first ask, did you see that play by Lamar Jackson where he I'm sure everyone's seen it. He extends a play, he stiff arms the guy into the ground. He's a step from going out of bounds, throws it into the end zone for a touchdown. And you're like, that's a play of the year, right? I mean, that's unbelievable.
He fumbles, the snap gets fumbled. He picks it up. It's like, okay, where am I at? Finds his way out of the pocket, stiff arms a grown man into the ground and says, hold on, I got this. Laser to the end zone, and it's a touchdown. Those are things you can only get from Lamar Jackson. And one thing I'll say about this matchup is it was just special. Joe Burrow, almost 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. Lamar Jackson, 350 yards, 4 touchdowns. Did I say 3 touchdowns for Burrow? He had 5. But just some incredible athletes doing incredible things. Jamar Chase absolutely lighting it up on the receiving side. Derrick Henry lighting up, rushing the football. I mean, so much talent on both sides of the ball for both teams. It just came down to a couple plays. One, the Joe Burrow interception, which gave the Ravens the opportunity to get that field goal, closing out regulation. And then, you have an error in your snap to kick operation that causes McPherson to miss. You hate to see that. Just chaos. It was insane.
There were multiple times because the Ravens were in field goal position when Lamar fumbled, and you're like, they got the game, and then he fumbles the game away. We thought, and then for lack of a term, the Bengals also fumbled the game away with that dropping that snap on the field goal, and you're like, multiple times I thought the game was over. Even in the end of the regulation, Joe Burrow and the Bengals have the ball, and on 2nd and 15, Burrow throws an interception. And you're like, oh my gosh, does anyone want to? It was so
does anyone want to win this football game?
I didn't want to say that, but it's I mean, it just back and it was an emotional roller coaster, I guess, watching this football game.
Yeah, and Joe Burrow now, I believe, has 12 touchdowns and 2 interceptions on the year, and somehow they are only 1-4. What do we need to make of the Cincinnati Bengals right now?
I think there's a lot to say. First of all, not only that, so not only does Burrow have 12 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, they're 1-4. He put up 33 against Washington, they lost. Now 38 points against against the Ravens, and they lose. So he's scoring. He's doing his job. He's doing his half of the bargain. I think this is a symptom of paying a quarterback as much money if you pay Joe Burrow. I hate to say this, I love Joe Burrow, but look at some of the highest paid quarterbacks in football right now are not winning games. You're looking at Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. You're looking at Dak Prescott, who's 3-2, but not exactly killing it this year. Yeah, the Bengals are 1-4. I just go back to this, man. The best contracts in football are that mid-30s paying a quarterback. Baker Mayfield's contract has got way better value for his team than Joe Burrow. Even though Burrow's a way better player, putting up better points and better numbers, I'd rather pay Baker Mayfield less money and pay people around him. I know that's it's a weird take, but I'm just seeing quarterbacks get paid all this money, a massive chunk of the salary cap, and it doesn't seem to lead to winning.
Yeah, it doesn't lead to winning because obviously you can't pay guys. And when it comes time to pay your quarterback, you know that the 2 years prior, you have to start moving off of guys. You can't afford to bring everybody back from your best defense. You can't afford to pay T. Higgins because you want to pay Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow before him. And so all of these things start to come up, and Mixon, he was out the door as well. So it's paying your quarterback that much money without them being a Mahomes caliber guy, or honestly a Joe Burrow caliber guy, it's hard. It really is hard to justify. Again, and you didn't even mention a guy like Tua and Jordan Love, who jury's still out on Jordan Love. He's got some potential, but again, it's hard to put great talent around these guys if you're paying them that much money.
The brutal reality, even look, I would have thought the Josh Allen contract makes a lot of sense because he can overcome. He can be Superman. They're 3-2, a couple ugly losses. Basically, the only contract that makes sense to pay a quarterback as much money as they have is Patrick Mahomes, who seems impervious to whatever you put around him. But he's also making $45 million a year. He's making way less than some of these other guys. Dak is making $60 a year. Mahomes isn't even a top 10 paid quarterback in football right now. So look it up. Look it up.
Salary wise, no.
But average annual value.
but every year they convert his money to signing bonus. This dude's making 60 something plus a year. 100%, I promise you that. It's just how it shows up on the cap hit and the cap report that it's different.
Let's look it up. Highest paid NFL quarterbacks. 10 highest paid NFL quarterbacks right now. Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, Tua, Jared Goff, Herbert, Jackson, Hurts, Murray, Deshaun Watson. Tie for 12th is Kirk Cousins and Patrick Mahomes at $45 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you're paying Trevor Lawrence $55 million a year and Patrick Mahomes $45 million a year. And I would pay Mahomes the Lawrence money, right? I would never pay Trevor Lawrence $45 million a year. My point is this: Trevor Lawrence is 1-4. Paying your quarterback a ton of money yearly is leading to teams being crippled. And it's just, that's the lesson of the Bengals. I love Joe Burrow. I do. I think he's incredible. He's killing it this year. Even he can't overcome the inability to pay people around him. The only guy who seems to be able to do that is Patrick Mahomes. And I just, it's a weird reality of football right now. I'd rather have a guy like, man, Jaden Daniels on a rookie contract. I mean, the best contract in football is really Baker Mayfield, because that's a second contract. It's hard to judge a rookie contract against Patrick Mahomes' contract. But outside of Patrick Mahomes' contract, it's got to be a guy like Baker Mayfield making $33 million a year. Or even Kirk is earning that money at $45 million a year.
Yeah.
But paying Joe Burrow 55 and 1-4 ain't cutting it. It's a problem to me. I feel like I'm harping on it week to week, but it's like, it's killing me a little bit inside.
It is. And just to close the loop here, Mahomes' signing bonus this year is $27 million. His base salary is $9.85. His roster bonus is $7.9. And he's got a workout bonus of $1 million, but his cap hit is only $37 million. That's the magic right there, is how they structure that contract. Eventually, they're going to have to pay the Pied Piper. They keep kicking the can down the road right now. And in his new deal from 2023 to 2026, he's slated to make $208 million. So again, he's up there with the best. It's just how they do it.
Yeah, and Joe Burrow's salary cap this year is, I guess it's less. It's $29 million. So it's
hit. I believe he's on the last year of his rookie deal, so I don't think his cap hit starts for at least, I think, another 2 years, I want to say.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I've seen the Bengals lose piece after piece, small pieces that have over time added up a lot. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm great with the money stuff when it comes to analyzing quarterback contracts. It's just emotionally, I look at the highest paid quarterbacks in football. I look at the very simple lists and I go, man, Burrow's 1-4, Mahomes is 5-0, making less. Yeah, and it's like, that's weird.
And let me be clear, like, I'm not a capologist. I'm looking up my numbers here to help support some of the things I'm saying here. But again, back to this game, Baltimore versus Cincy. Lamar Jackson is playing an MVP caliber football this year, keeping this team in games. I don't think the defense has played up to par this year, as talented as they are. But they've also given up points to some pretty good football teams. And it's like we said last week with Cincinnati. They've got to figure out that defense. That's the thing we need to press the panic button on. Joe Burrow, he got healthy. He had a kind of tough start, but now things are rolling. But that defense is so far behind right now.
Who would you say is the NFL MVP frontrunner right now?
Oh, man. I would honestly say it's in between Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. I think those two guys are playing, albeit different looking football. They are winning football games for their teams. And I think those two are the most special quarterbacks in the league right now.
There's one other name I would throw in there. We even texted about this. You disagree, I think, because it's a little early for this. But to me, Kirk Cousins' name has to be mentioned, because you look at where they were last year in Atlanta to where they are now and the value he's clearly brought. Yeah, they're not, they've lost some games, but they have not had a moment in Atlanta all year long where they were down by more than a touchdown or up by more than a touchdown, meaning every single moment of their season has been close. And to me, I interpret that stat as, hey, that's the difference of Kirk Cousins. He's so much better than Ritter was last year, and whatever the hell else happened at quarterback. He has elevated that franchise and brought stability and maturity. And frankly, Kirk Cousins in Atlanta is what I thought Aaron Rodgers might be for the Jets, where they're winning. He's changing things. Things are different. And he's keeping them in games. And I just can't think of another quarterback quite other than Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson who's been doing that. And the stark contrast to the Falcons last year without Kirk to this year with him is just so obvious that you're like, hey, you got to consider Kirk Cousins, in my opinion, for NFL MVP.
Yeah, like you said, I'm not willing to put him in that conversation yet. To me, he's only had one outstanding game that's really made me feel like, wow, okay, he is worth this money that they just paid an aging quarterback coming off of their
Which
Achilles
game?
for at this last game against Tampa Bay.
What about the Eagles game where he put together that crazy drive to win? I think that was another one where he earned that contract, man. That drive was
To me,
incredible. Like, how
to
many
me,
people can orchestrate
to
that
me that
drive in
was more
football?
Philly falling apart. And Philly
Oh.
letting them hang around
Oh.
in that game. That's just how I feel about it. Now, you're
Sure.
right. Kirk has brought more to this team. There's no way with Desmond Ritter or Mariota that they win that game against Philly, but I still need to see more on a consistent basis. Like, I don't want to see them sweat it out every week.
Mm.
Every single game that they've had has been one possession, and I'm not saying that you need to blow teams out to be an MVP, but I want to see you start to finish put a game together that's complementary football to your excellent defense that scores points and then just bleeds the clock out. Like that's what I want to see is Kirk Cousins truly control a game versus reacting to a game. He's looked great so far reacting to the circumstances. I want to see him hop out there and take control.
I'll tell you what, the game that I can't wait for is Atlanta at Minnesota, December 8th. That is going to be, Kirk Cousins going back to Minnesota, playing what I think is a good Minnesota team this year. It's going to be really, really like must see TV. I think the rest of the schedule for Atlanta is pretty light. Carolina, Seattle, Dallas, New Orleans, Denver. I mean, man, Raiders, like a lot of winnable
Yeah.
games there. Giants, Carolina again. Like, man, they're primed to be in a really good spot come January, in my opinion.
They've got, I think, 3 out of 4 games here. Seattle's defense to me is interesting just because of their 2 corners, Witherspoon and Tariq Woolen. They make those matchups on the back end interesting. So I think they've got 3 out of these next 4 games for that offense to build off that momentum that they had against Tampa Bay before you have to go play New Orleans and Denver, which are 2 great defenses. So yeah, excited for them to keep building on what they got going on. Start Kirk Cousins next week against Carolina in your fantasy lineups. But yeah, I'm not willing to put him in that MVP conversation quite yet.
The Vikings beat the Jets 23-17 in London. It was kind of nice to wake up early Sunday morning and just have football. I'm like, oh, it's on. I love football. It's right here. I don't have to wait for anything.
So good.
What I want to talk about is, first of all, it wasn't really like Sam Darnold beat his former team, the Jets, and that's a cool storyline. It really wasn't Sam Darnold's best game. He had 2 turnovers, a fumble, an interception, 14 for 31 passing, 179 yards. This wasn't like the Sam Darnold come to Jesus, prove you wrong moment. It didn't feel that way to me. Really, the storyline to me is, hey, Aaron Rodgers, your quarterback of the Jets, had 3 interceptions. Like, I've been waiting and waiting for this Jets team to look good with Aaron Rodgers, and it just hasn't. The moment hasn't happened yet. What'd you make of that game? What stands out to you?
Why are we throwing the ball 52 times when you've got Braylon Allen and you've got Breece Hall on your team? That to me is what sticks out. And to ladder that back to Aaron, that's how Aaron wants to do things. There's no offensive coordinator. There's nobody in that locker room on that staff that's going to tell him otherwise. And to me, that's a problem. You need somebody that can set Aaron up for success. And I have to applaud LaFleur for what he did with him in Green Bay for a number of years. But goodness gracious, you've got to find a way to start running the football before you target Garrett Wilson 22 times for only 10 or 13 catches.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers was 29 for 54 for 244 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Now, Garrett Wilson, 22 targets, 13 catches, 101 yards, and a touchdown. But the really criminal thing here, between Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, 14 carries for 36 yards running the football.
That's horrible.
They're not really, I would say they're letting Aaron Rodgers operate this offense unchecked. And there doesn't seem to be a relationship where they're able to challenge him at all. And nor does he want to hear that.
No.
I think Aaron's hurting his football team at this point. And I really was hopeful when Aaron got brought into the Jets, like, they're going to change things. I think Robert Saleh's been a good coach, but never had a good quarterback. And man, it's getting really hard to defend Robert Saleh. But it's also like, man, why is no one able to keep Aaron Rodgers in check or challenge him at all? Because what they're doing at the line of scrimmage is not working.
No, they're not. And like you said, Robert Saleh's taking a lot of this heat, but that defense since week 1 has, number one, gotten better every single week. And they had Sam Darnold and Kevin O'Connell in a blender, right? Outside of a pick 6, they had 1 offensive touchdown all year. I'm sorry, not all year, all game. Like that Vikings defense was having a tough time. That Jets defense was getting turnovers. Both defenses, like you said, were having a master class of getting the football from the opposing team, and neither offense could do anything. Again, I'm more disappointed in throwing the ball 52 times when you've got two excellent backs. You're not getting your offensive line in any sort of physical rhythm. They're just pass setting the entire game. Like that's not how you dominate the line of scrimmage. You have to be able to find a way to move the football. And I know that the Vikings have had a good rush defense, but still throwing the ball 52 times when you're not down an egregious amount of points, that to me is ridiculous.
Yeah, and I watched Aaron throw a really bad interception to Van Ginkel to start the game in the a little bit end of the first quarter. Then the following drive, throw another interception. And it was really criminal to me. They had a shot to win the game. They're down 6 points in the fourth quarter with the football. They get the ball, 3 minutes left, down 6. So, okay, they're going to drive down the field to get a touchdown. And instead, Aaron throws an interception. And it's like, man, we are I'm waiting for that moment to come where it shows like Aaron Rodgers is the guy. He's leading this team. And I've been waiting for a long, long time. But I don't know, man. I don't know if that moment's ever going to come. I really had this conversation with Molly. I was like, hey, I wonder if Aaron should have just retired and like just walked off into the sunset. I know he's making millions of dollars, and it's hard to walk away from that. But I think Aaron's hurting his legacy at this point by playing badly and not helping his team win. I don't know if you agree with that. And maybe they're going to let him play again next year, and maybe next year he can really turn things around. But the Aaron Rodgers storyline with the Jets as their quarterback, it's been pretty ugly and not very impressive so far.
Yeah, their 2 wins right now are Tennessee and New England.
Yeah.
That's not great. What Aaron needs to do is just get out of his own way, accept help. He strikes me as a guy who wants to do it and figure it out himself on behalf of everyone instead of a collective effort to figure out what is going to be best for the team.
Can I point out the hilarity that we just watched a game where the Jets had a quarterback named Aaron Rodgers, supposed to be the dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
He got outplayed by Sam Darnold.
I don't know about outplayed. Neither QB played great.
He had worse numbers, I guess, than Sam Darnold. Like how I'm just saying though, say it out loud for a Jets fan to have Aaron Rodgers be your quarterback. You get this Hall of Fame quarterback. He throws 3 interceptions and you lose to Sam Darnold. Like how much pain does that have to be if you're a Jets fan? Like that's gotta be just like a dagger to the heart, right?
That's got to feel extra bad. It's got to feel good for Sam Darnold knowing that he could throw for less than 50% completion and no touchdowns and still beat the Jets are a good team. Let's be clear. Like they're a good team. They're a good defense. So to have that happen, like you got to feel really good if you're a Vikings fan to recognize, hey, if we don't play perfect offensively, we're okay. And that was one of the things is they were jumping out on these teams and scoring a lot of points, but now you know that they can kind of win it the other way too with some tough defense. So that's really positive for them. But again, throwing the ball 52 times is crazy to me. I think they scored 93 points after 5 games last year. They scored 93 points with Zach Wilson after 5 games last year.
Yeah.
What'd you pay for? Where'd you upgrade to right now? We're not sure.
Yeah, 54 passes. Here's what I'll say, man. The Vikings. I guess I'll ask you a question. Would you say the Vikings, by winning differently, grabbed your attention and maybe a little more your respect after this game?
Yes, they have moved up into my tier 2 of Super Bowl contenders. When you can win a game like that, that's muddy, it's ugly, it's not going exactly how you want it, but you find a way to win. Aaron Jones, your top running back, goes down. Justin Jefferson, kind of a little bit unhealthy, still making an impact. Jordan Addison coming back from being hurt. Like they played complete as a team, you know? And again, it wasn't perfect, but they found a way to get it done. And that's the kind of pedigree that helps you in those big playoff games, those big moments, that toughness. I love it.
I saw a graphic today. The last team to start 5-0 and missed the playoffs.
Oh, I saw this too.
Was the Minnesota Vikings.
It was in 2016, right?
You know, it's even weirder though. That year, they had a bye week 6. Guess what the Vikings have this year? They have a bye next week in week 6.
Uh-oh.
I don't know. God, does that mean anything? Not really. It's a weird coincidence though. It's like that's strange. Now, after the bye weekend, they play against Detroit, and that'll be the game for me. They're 5-0. They've got some impressive wins too. Green Bay, 49ers, Houston, the Jets defense. Like
They've beat some good teams.
Yeah, but if they start 6-0 and they beat Detroit week 6, then it's like, hey, or sorry, week 7, then you got to consider them a Super Bowl contender, in my opinion, as one of the best teams in the NFC. The way they've run through people, if they can beat Detroit, then you're like, hey, this is a legit Super Bowl contender. That's an opportunity for them in 2 weeks from now to make a massive statement.
Yep, they'll drop into tier 1 immediately. It'll be a great test. Aiden Hutchinson coming after you all night. It'll be fun to see what they can do.
With a busy schedule, it's hard to eat the way you'd like. That's where Factor can help you. They can provide you high quality, never frozen meals where all you got to do is heat them up and eat. Factor provides a ton of different options. There are, in fact, 35 different meal selections you can choose from each week. There's Gourmet Plus options, keto, calorie smart, vegan, and or veggie. Factor can help you with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Plus, there are even snack add-ons that can keep you fueled between meals. Most importantly, though, Factor can provide high-quality food that's ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Head to factormeals.com/SOS50 and use code SOS50. Get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month. That's code SOS50 at factormeals.com/SOS50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. Houston beat Buffalo 23-20. To me, the storyline that's fun about this we'll talk a lot about it. Mm-hmm. Josh Allen was 9 for 30 passing at 131 yards and a touchdown. And Stephon Diggs had 6 catches for 82 yards. Stephon Diggs by himself had more yards receiving than the entire wide receiving room of the Buffalo Bills. Now, their number one receiver, it was out, Khalil Shakur. You don't think he's the number one, but he is the number one receiver in that offense. On that team, he's the number one guy they have.
It's like it's like the Vanderbilt guy who's like, Bama, you're next. And then they talk to Jalen Hurts and he's like, theoretically, they are next. You're like, Shaquille, like number one wide receiver. Like in theory, like he is their number one wide receiver, but he's not a one. Anyways.
I thought it was interesting. I think I would assume what you're going to say, and what stood out to me is, hey, we said even going into it, to win this game, Josh Allen has to play like Superman. We didn't see that. And now the game was remarkably close. I thought way closer than I expected, honestly, given Khalil Shakur is out, given that Josh Allen, if you tell me Josh Allen was 9 for 30, I'd say, oh, they lost by 20 points. That didn't happen here. It was actually really close and interesting. What'd you make of Houston beating Buffalo this weekend?
I made it out to be, again, we needed Josh Allen to be Superman for them to win this game, and he wasn't. He was 9 for 30. But before I talk about any of that, Josh Allen needed to come out of that game. No excuses. I don't know if you saw the hit that he took with his helmet smashing against the ground and his body goes limp. It's clear that he had a blackout moment and he somehow ended up back on the field. That to me is so inappropriate from the NFL. And again, speaking to somebody who's had a number of concussions, you have to protect your brain. And if the NFL is going to continue to be this advocate for the health and safety of the players, there's no way that Josh Allen should have been on that field for the remainder of the game. To me, that was absolutely ridiculous.
There was a moment on Sunday Night Football where Justin Fields got hit really hard, thrown to the ground, and he wanted to stay in the game. The NFL calls an injury timeout. They force him to leave, and he's telling the ref, no, I'm staying in. He calls the play in the huddle, lines up, and they're like, no, you got to leave the game, Justin. And they kick him out, make him go to the blue tent. That was the NFL interjecting and doing what I think is right, which is say, hey, we don't care what you think. We don't care what the refs think. We want that player to be checked out. Sounds like you're upset that didn't happen for Josh Allen in that moment.
Yeah, because it was very evident that his head hit the turf hard. And I talked about that a couple weeks ago with Josh Allen extending these plays and throwing it close to the sideline. When you go down, and especially as big as he is, and you go down hard, people need to understand, like helmet-to-helmet contact, like your neck has some give to it, right? When somebody comes right in, top of your noggin, like there's some wiggle, there's some movement. When your head hits the turf or the ground doesn't move. The ground's not going anywhere. It's not soft. It's not cushy. So when it hits it, that is more likely to be a concussion than it is helmet to helmet. That's how I've had my worst ones. It's not helmet to helmet, but your head hitting an immovable object that is the earth. And again, seeing his body go limp, it just hurts my heart. And I know that he's a competitor, right? I'm never blaming the athlete in that situation because he wants to win the game. Oftentimes you're not thinking about what's best for you. You're thinking about trying to win the game, but somebody needed to step in there.
Yeah. There's been accusations that, I guess, I don't know it's hard to tell from the video, but to me, people are saying he had smelling salts that you were used to like basically wake him up. I don't know. I think it's, I just defer to you with that one. It was an ugly, ugly play and a bad look for the NFL, in my opinion.
Ugly play, horrible look for the NFL. And if he's not in concussion protocol or going through it now, the NFL, I'm not sure what kind of rules they have on that, but you need to force that man into concussion protocol, period. Getting to the game now, the Buffalo Bills defensively really strapped up in the second half. They made it tough for Houston, but Houston, I'm continuing to see them shoot themselves in the foot week after week and make these games more stressful than they need to be. You're coming down the stretch, you have an interception and a fumble, and then a short drive and you punt. Right. And you better thank God's green earth that the Bills didn't use up any time and gave you the ball right back for you to kick a field goal. But goodness gracious, I think this is where they truly miss Joe Mixon. As great as Stroud can be, and a few of the great throws that he made, especially in that final drive before they inevitably punted, he hit Schultz with absolute dime on third down to kind of keep the chains moving. They miss Joe Mixon helping them control the game. And again, I'm turning into this, run the damn ball, this, running back czar. But goodness gracious, how much that changed the game, how much that changes the game when you have an elite level running back who can get you downhill, the hard-earned yards, shorten the game by using up the game clock, using up the play clock. Hopefully when he comes back healthy, they'll be able to stop shooting themselves in the foot. But again, just miscues is what's hurting the Texans right now, and they need to get that figured out.
Yeah, I thought they won in spite of 2 second half turnovers from CJ Stroud, an interception and a fumble on a sack.
Yeah.
And they're fortunate is the right word. What do you take away from a high, 1,000-foot view?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel differently about Houston? Do you feel differently about Buffalo? I think Houston, like you said, the takeaway is, hey, the miscue's got to be eliminated. You kind of got away with one here.
Mm-hmm.
How do you read this game from the Bills' perspective?
From the Bills' perspective, you feel great that your defense was able to hold their own against this Texans offense that's written in the books as, supposedly one of the best in the NFL with the weapons that they have and CJ Stroud at quarterback, right? So if you're the Bills, you feel good about the way the defense showed up, particularly in the second half, getting those takeaways. On that offensive side, again, there's just not much to write home about, and you're going to consistently ask Josh Allen to put the cape on, be Superman. I might downgrade them again from what I felt like they were to start this year. Remember, I kind of had them in that, I want to say 9-8 or I'm sorry, 8-9, 7-10 range. I don't know if they have less wins than that, but especially if they're missing anybody offensively and Josh Allen has one less target or one less person to get the ball to, that just to me spells disaster and doesn't give me any optimism. If you're Houston, just clean up the mistakes. Lean on your run game when Mixon's healthy, and I think that they'll start to trend in the right direction.
Next week, Buffalo plays at the Jets on Monday Night Football. What do you expect from that game?
I expect the Jets to actually win this one by 2 scores, especially if Josh Allen doesn't end up playing. Again, I'm not sure where things sit with him in terms of the concussion protocol, but I do expect the Jets to win this. Why? I think between DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner, who's also a little bit banged up right now, I think they're going to be able to manage the weapons that they have, that the Bills have offensively, but then also their run defense, and Quinnen Williams is going to be able to get after Josh Allen. He's quick enough, I think, to kind of chase him down on those plays where Josh Allen typically gets out of. And I do think that the way the Bills play their zone defense will be beneficial to Aaron Rodgers. There's going to be less movement, less disguise coming from Sean McDermott in the way he plays that zone, and it might help Aaron Rodgers pre-snap either A, run the football, the Bills don't have a great run defense, or B, find the right matchups and find the guys sitting in the zones. So I just think it's a it's a bad matchup for the Bills, and I think it's the right matchup for the Jets to get back on track.
On Sunday Night Football this weekend, Pittsburgh lost to Dallas 20-17. So again, Dallas beat Pittsburgh 20-17. It was weird. There was a rain delay, heavy rain in Pittsburgh. There's a hilarious record Dak Prescott now has that he's only quarterback ever to throw an interception on 2 different days during one game. You would have liked that to be touchdowns, but he does have a record now. He's infamous for that.
Love it.
I struggle with this game, man. I don't know what you make of this game. I think you said to me on the text message thread, like, this is 2 bad teams out batting each other. Did you enjoy this game on Sunday night? Like, I really didn't. It felt like, in fact, Austin, who's going to be on the show Thursday, he's a Cowboys fan, texted me, watching Dallas is just a chore. It's just not a fun, enjoyable thing. What did you make of this game?
Yeah, I think that Dak Prescott was able to throw for a lot of yards that ended up being useless. Obviously, having the 2 interceptions and a lost fumble, like those turnovers are just going to kill you. And again, credit to the Pittsburgh defense there for forcing those. And then on the flip side, Justin Fields and Arthur Smith being unable to concoct anything to win you the football game. If that defense is giving you turnovers, you have got to be able to score in some way, shape, or form. And they just weren't able to capitalize and do that. They weren't able to run the football. The Steelers weren't able to run the football against a completely depleted Dallas defense that's missing Micah Parsons and Dexter Lawrence in that front 7. Like, I don't know how your run or how your game plan isn't, all right, we're just running the ball today. Over and over and over again, and controlling the clock and keeping the ball out of Dak's hands and keeping the ball away from CeeDee Lamb. Man, like I said over text, like, I don't think I have anything more to say about, these 2 teams. I think we've already seen the best of Justin Fields. Like I said, I don't think his ceiling gets much higher. I'm tired of Arthur Smith getting credit for, creating Ryan Tannehill, when in reality it was AJ Brown and Derrick Henry, the centerpieces of those offenses, making the things go. I'm trying not to be a hater here for both the Cowboys and the Steelers, but I just don't see 2 good football teams. I see 2 teams that are struggling to find identities, especially offensively, and 2 teams that don't have the weapons necessary to beat other good teams in the NFL.
I was frustrated by this. I've been waiting and hoping Justin Fields can prove himself to be the franchise quarterback we've been waiting for in Pittsburgh. Like, I've been waiting and hoping. And I'm starting to wonder, he's not been truly like awful. He's been fine.
Yeah.
And it's really, we're getting to the point where I this whole time kind of thought, I think Russell Wilson's secretly healthy, but they're playing it really slow. They're letting him get fully healthy where he's, not playing partially injured. But they're also wondering, hey, can Justin become our guy? If we commit to Justin, we can never go back to Russ. And if we commit to Russ, we can't let it play with Justin. So they've been really intentionally ambiguous with the QB1 situation in Pittsburgh. I think the truth is, if Justin Fields had earned the right to be QB1 and played great, they would have said it by now. They've been waiting. I've been waiting. It hasn't happened. And I can't remember. It was actually on the broadcast. Chris Collinsworth said, man, I think Arthur Smith is the perfect quintessential Steelers offensive coordinator. And I'm like, that's really concerning if that's true.
That's not what you want to hear.
They don't look great. They're struggling to throw the football. They're not running the ball very well. I don't know what I don't get it. I don't get why people love Arthur Smith. I don't know if it's because his dad is a billionaire who founded FedEx. I don't know what the deal is. I'm sure that doesn't hurt. I'm like, I don't get why there's this massive embracing of Arthur Smith. I've never loved it. I've never understood it. And I don't think it's that impressive this year in Pittsburgh so far. Let's say this out loud. The game was there for the taking, and the offense once again couldn't score enough points to get the dub in Pittsburgh. And that's not the first time I've seen that this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the one thing I'm going to give Dak credit for, is that last drive. It was a close to 5-minute drive. You went 15 plays, 70 yards. You really drove down the field. But that's all the credit I can give this team for that win. I don't think they did anything special prior to that moment to put them in that situation. It was the Steelers shooting their own selves in the foot. unable to score in the red zone, unable to get really just any offense going in general. And that's what allowed Dallas to have this opportunity.
I want to talk about Washington playing the Browns now. And I'd like to talk about Washington briefly and then really get into the Browns. The Commanders beat the Browns 34-13. Washington's 4-1. And so what stands out to me is like, hey,
Yeah.
this young quarterback's playing awesome. They're winning games. It's really cool. I'm curious if you have anything you want to say about Washington.
This was a game, although they scored 34 points, I think we saw Jaden Daniels have a little bit of a tougher time. He was forced to use his legs kind of more than he had been in previous weeks, which he did excellently. But man, he's just a dog. He's the kind of guy that really recognizes when it's time to take that shot. Like there's just some quarterbacks that have an instinct about, okay, I know this is my play, and I know that I'm going to have this shallow crosser, but I'm going to hang on and I'm going to wait for that deep post. Or I'm going to give this guy a look. It's man, I'm going to give my guy the opportunity. And Jaden Daniels, to me, just has that instinct of when to kind of play outside of the offense and when to just let your guys go and make plays. And I think he's being empowered by Cliff Kingsbury to do that. And that's what's making that combination so special. So again, props to him for how he's been facilitating this. And Terry McLaurin, again, great to see him over 100 yards. Brian Robinson Jr. kind of had a tough game there, but Austin Eckler was able to come in. Jeremy McNichols, old Boise State cat, like they were able to step up. It just seems like it's a team effort and these guys are having fun. And that's what you see from the Dan Quinn teams, which you saw last year in Dallas. Even though he was defensive coordinator, he's brought that same energy here to Washington.
Yeah, it makes me wonder what would happen if Dan Quinn was the head coach in Dallas, honestly. And that's an organization where I think they could have pulled that off because they got a veteran quarterback. So I think if they'd had, Cliff Kingsbury as offensive coordinator and Dan Quinn as head coach in Dallas, it's an interesting, different football team. Instead, they took that energy to Washington, and Jay Daniels is a great leader there. They love him. You pointed out De'Ami Brown before the season. He had a really long, nice touchdown in this game, and it was like, I think right down the right sideline. It's like, that's beautiful, man.
And I was wondering where he had been kind of all year. It was one of those first episodes. Somebody was talking about, what happened with, was it Curtis, not Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson and his exit. And somebody said, well, De'Ami Brown's kind of, popping off and he's been doing great in camp. It was great to see him finally arrive in that moment. And I look forward to seeing more from him as he continues to develop.
Yeah, the offense is young. You got a rookie quarterback. Things are developing. I think as the year goes on, like they saw one-on-one coverage and took a shot to De'Ami Brown. I want to see more of those opportunities. There's a ball, you talked about it, I think, where Jaden Daniels is extending a play to the right and, passes up a short completion to launch it deep to Terry McLaurin for like 60-something yards. And you're like, wow, it's beautiful. It looks, it wasn't the best game we've seen from Jaden Daniels as a pro, but there were some really great plays. I don't like he's the leading rusher, but he's making stuff happen with his legs. Right. He's taking shots downfield. He's beating man coverage. He looks like a seasoned veteran. And I think it's really funny. I don't know what to do with this information, but last year, the number one pick was not the best quarterback taken. This year, I don't know if it's fair to say he's better than Caleb Williams given what's around him, but we're seeing, once again, the number 2 overall pick looks like the more successful rookie quarterback with Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams. And last year we had CJ Stroud over Bryce Young. I don't know what to make of that information, but it's interesting to me. Hey, the second guy chosen might be better. And it's like, fascinating.
Yeah, there's a chance. I think the jury's still out on both those guys right now. Yeah. A lot of football left to play this season, but both guys have looked well. Obviously, Jaden Daniels has looked unbelievable. I would like to point out, though, that Cleveland defense is still something to, I don't want to say like be reckoned with. They gave up 34 points, but that team, and I think this is what you're about to get into, just feels uninspired. Are you seeing that too?
Yeah. I think it's, well, let me say first, before we really move into Cleveland, the 3 rookie quarterbacks right now, Caleb Williams is 3-2, Jaden Daniels is 4-1, and Bo Nix is 3-2. So all 3 rookie quarterbacks have a winning record. I like to see that.
That's impressive.
I'm surprised. I didn't expect that, honestly, especially with Chicago. I was like, no way they're going to start the year 3-2. But now let's shift to Cleveland, where Man, I don't want to repeat. In fact, I think next week let's specifically not talk about Cleveland. Right? Let's go out
Mhm.
of our way to just not talk about them every week. But the Browns are 1-4, and it's time to officially acknowledge, hey, the Browns briefly were a good football team during my lifetime. They had 1 year they made the playoffs with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. It's over. It's totally over. They're 1-4. Deshaun Watson's awful. The team looks like they've given up on him. There were moments where, like, there was a fourth down where they wanted to go for it. The team's ready to go. Deshaun Watson literally walked off the field. There was a game last year where Deshaun Watson was ruled as healthy enough to play by doctors, but chose not to play.
Mhm.
I can't say enough how much the Browns threw away a good thing. Literally, they had Baker Mayfield. He's now winning in Tampa, doing well, and the Browns are 1-4 and awful, and back to being a terrible franchise again. I got asked a question on Patreon last week. Hey, who's the Browns of the 2020s? And I'm like, it's still the Browns.
It's still the
Sorry.
Browns.
They had a brief moment, but it's over. It came and went, and it's really sad to me that the Browns organization has fallen as far as they have. They're going to have to fire their coach. They got the wrong quarterback. They're stuck with. And I don't have much more to add on top of everything I've said week to week, but let's just acknowledge, hey, the best the Browns ever were in my lifetime was that one brief moment they had Baker Mayfield at quarterback, and
Mm.
they completely squandered that. They threw it away, and the Browns are back to being one of the worst teams in football again. And that's a crying shame because I think the talent has been there,
Yeah.
and they've just been terribly managed, and it's so sad and disappointing.
Yeah, it's certainly a symptom of the top-down situation. I think it even extending to the owners, right, and just how historically that organization has been ran poorly. Like you said, they did ruin a good thing. I don't think that Baker Mayfield was the good thing. If I'll be honest with you, he's playing in a completely different offense. I don't think that offense was built for him. What he was doing at Oklahoma to what he's being asked to do in Cleveland to what he's doing in Tampa are entirely different things, right? But back to just the general feeling of the Browns, it seems like they go out there every week and they have no confidence in the offense. And why play defense if your offense is going to put any points up on the board? And on the offensive side of the ball, why do I want to play for a guy who doesn't bleed that same passion that I am? I think you got a guy like Amari Cooper, who's not necessarily a vocal leader. I think you've got Jerry Jeudy, who was kind of ushered out of Denver for, I don't want to say like having personality conflicts and problems, but he can just be a generally tough guy in the locker room for players to deal with. And just I hate to say that again, like Kevin Stefanski's time is up in Cleveland, but they need to do something to shake it up. And I think it starts with the quarterback and it starts with the head coach.
I don't have much more to add, man. I just want to kind of have a moment of silence. Like not really, but like I want to acknowledge the
Moment
Browns.
of silence.
It's over. It really, like, I remember being so excited when they made the playoffs, and I thought, oh, things are changing, and it's so cool, and the Browns
Yeah.
are a good organization. Oh my gosh! And
Yeah.
in classic Browns fashion, they squandered it away, and it's just I've now, this is the moment where it's like, let's acknowledge
Yeah.
it's completely over in Cleveland.
Yeah, they are hurt on the offensive line. Obviously, or Jack Conklin's now out. Wyatt Teller's on the IR. James Hudson III is out. Plus, not having Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
Knowing that Kevin Stefanski wants to run the football as the focal point of that offense, that could be tough. So maybe we need to lean in and give a little bit more, I don't want to say credit there, but kind of recognize that they're working through some tough things offensively. But if that's the case, you've got to find other things that work offensively. We see it with other great offensive coaches. When one thing's not working, they find a way to set themselves up for success, utilizing other parts of their offense. That defense is also pretty busted up between Jordan Hicks, Koromora, Denzel Ward is hurt, Grant Delpit. I'm just looking at their depth chart here. They've just got injuries all over, and I just don't think that helps the situation and doesn't help the vibe in the locker room.
So a couple things. Number one, the new lawsuit claim that happened a month ago, that's been solved apparently. So that's done and dusted. What I really care about though is this. Here are the next. This is literally. I thought it would end. I looked like I was going to say, oh, the next 5 games are really tough for Cleveland, but I was like, actually, it's 6. Actually, it's 7. It's 8. It's like, well, they've got one winnable game on December 29th. They play the Miami Dolphins, which I think Tua's done. So I think they're going to win that game. If Tua's back, they probably don't even win that game. But here's the rest of the year for the Browns' schedule: at Philly, then Cincinnati, then the Ravens. That's the next 3 weeks they're going to lose. They play the Chargers after that, then the Saints in New Orleans, then Pittsburgh, then at Denver, then at Pittsburgh, then Kansas City, then Cincinnati, then Miami, then at Baltimore. It doesn't help their division's pretty good. I think the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Steelers are all pretty good football teams. But Chargers, Saints, Denver, Kansas City, like these are all good teams. They're going to play Philly. It's over, dude. They might win 3 games this year. I'm serious. It's like, oh my gosh. When you look at what's ahead for Cleveland and how bad they've been, and then the rest of their schedule, it's like, dude, that's a horrifying mountain to climb if you're the Cleveland Browns organization.
Can I ask a fun question about this team?
Yep.
If we were to take Dak Prescott and put them on the Browns, how good are they? I'm thinking like 2 $60 million guys, right? If we put Dak Prescott on the Browns, how good are they?
I think Deshaun's actually like a 40. He makes more than Mahomes, but he's actually like makes $46 million a year. If you put Dak on this team, I think he would run the offense a little better. I think he would handle play action better. I think Dak would run Kevin Stefanski's system better. So they probably beat the Raiders. They probably beat the Giants. They probably beat Dallas. I think they're probably 3-2, 4-1 with Dak Prescott. Now the rest of the year, still pretty tough. Bengals, Ravens, Chargers, but also Dak's a good guy. I think the locker room would rally around a person like Dak Prescott in Cleveland. Honestly, like that's an interesting fit. It's probably a perfect fit for the offense, but also like the talent on defense would be way more inspired knowing we got a guy like Dak who's going to fight hard, be a great leader. He's a stand-up human being. He's going to put his best foot forward week to week. I think you're talking a much different Cleveland Browns organization with Dak Prescott at quarterback. Are they a Super Bowl contender? Probably not. Are they more like a 10 or 11 win team? I think, yeah, honestly. I think Dak would make a huge difference. Dak specifically, by the way, I think Dak is better than having Derek Carr or Baker Mayfield, or
Agreed.
I think he's the grown-up who also could run the offense really well.
A very expensive grown-up.
But by the way, Joe Flacco would have been a great option at quarterback this year. Joe Flacco, instead of Deshaun Watson, if they just said, hey, we messed up with this contract, we're going to cut Deshaun Watson, we're going to give Joe Flacco a 2-year contract until we can find a better option at quarterback.
Yeah,
I think that would have actually been a really awesome move for a risky, daring, ballsy move, but it would have paid off probably much better than whatever's going on with Deshaun Watson. Because I think not only is Deshaun not playing well and running the offense very well, I really genuinely believe his teammates don't like him. And like that, you're screwed. If you hate your quarterback, like, sorry, you're going to give your best effort blocking. You're going to pay as much attention. You're going to believe your offense is going to score when you're on the defensive side of the football. No, like it's hopeless if you hate your quarterback. And I think they really don't like him, honestly.
Yeah, I tend to get that feeling, and that sort of energy is currently emanating through that locker room. Things just feel disconnected, and they borderline feel sad. It feels sad. I do want to ask a mini segment question here.
Sure.
You brought up Joe Flacco, and he just went to Indianapolis, right? And he threw for 3 touchdowns. He's lit it up for the past 2 games in the stead of Anthony Richardson. Is Joe Flacco a Hall of Fame quarterback? And if he wasn't before, have these recent performances as a plug-and-play guy made us rethink Joe Flacco?
No.
He's got a Super Bowl win.
Here's what I think: if Joe Flacco goes to like Pittsburgh and then makes a playoff game, it's a different conversation. Like, where could Joe Flacco go next year? I think Pittsburgh's got an opening at quarterback. I think the Raiders have an opening at quarterback, although I don't think the Raiders are primed to win with him. I think Miami could have Joe Flacco, and it'd be really interesting. Like Miami having Joe Flacco throw deep shots to Tyreek Hill, pretty fun and interesting and exciting. And he could handle the complexity of that offense. So I think Joe Flacco, despite his age, we should give him 2 more years in the league. I'd like to see him sign a free agent contract with a team that's competitive, like Miami or Pittsburgh. And I really think that him running the offense in Pittsburgh or Miami specifically would be really interesting. Like that Doggle Hunt, is he willing to take some team-friendly deals? Because I really think, like, what's Miami going to do at quarterback? If they're awful, they maybe can draft a guy like Cameron Ward.
Mm-hmm.
Even so, you should really bring in a veteran quarterback. And I really think Joe Flacco playing with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, doing what Mike McDaniel wants to do on offense, that Doggle Hunt, like that'd be a really interesting, compelling team. And I think if Tua is really done, that opens up the door for a guy like Joe Flacco. And then at that point, you make a playoff game, you lead the league in passing, which I think he's capable of in a team like Miami. Then we can have that conversation. But right now, he's a really good quarterback who had a couple good moments. He's not a Hall of Fame quarterback, in my opinion. If Phillip Rivers isn't a Hall of Fame quarterback, then Joe Flacco certainly is not, in my mind.
He does have a Super Bowl, though, to Phillip Rivers' nuns.
Yeah. Trent Dilfer has a Super Bowl, too, though. Like, what are we doing with Super Bowls are not everything.
That's fair.
Like,
I got to ask another mini segment question here. Has his price gone up? I believe he signed like a 1 year, probably $9 million deal with the Colts. Next year, does he get a 2 year contract? I think he's probably 37. He's pretty old. He might be even older than that.
Yeah, but he's playing well. And I think we've seen quarterbacks can play for longer. And Aaron Rodgers
he's 39.
He's 39.
Yeah.
So how old is Aaron? Aaron is 40. I think Joe Flacco's got 2 more years. Given the way the rules work, here's my concern.
Is he going to cost you 20 to 30 million next year is a question. You just said he would need to take a team friendly deal. Like, what does team friendly look like for a guy like Joe Flacco who might have the opportunity to sign with the team next year as a bridge guy?
Yeah. Here's what Joe Flacco has to do. He has to have self-awareness to realize, hey, I'm pushing 40. And the reason I'm valuable is because I'm team friendly. Joe Flacco at $20 million is a really good deal. And he's not going to have a ton of suitors. He's not going to have a ton of opportunity. Not everyone wants Joe Flacco. He's got to have the self-awareness to say, hey, if you want to pay 2 more years and get some money and have a shot at a Super Bowl, you got to take a team-friendly contract. You got to go to Miami for $20 million a year. I don't know. That's not how the game works. Like, that's not how any of this works. Your agent negotiates really hard for you to get as much money as possible. If I could call Joe Flacco right now and say, dude, look, man, have some self-awareness. Realize where you're at in your career. Realize you've made a ton of money. Is money what you're playing for now? Or do you want to win? You want to make $20 million is good money. And $20 million, by the way, in Miami, where there's no state income tax, goes a lot farther than $20 million, let's say New York City or something like that.
Very true.
I just think it really depends on a lot of factors outside of anyone's control. It depends on Joe Flacco being willing to take a team-friendly deal and realizing why he really is valuable. But it also depends on a team being willing to take a shot. I think Miami's the perfect spot for him. I think Miami's going to be in position to draft a quarterback next year. But I think they're not going to want to start that guy immediately. I also think Tua is going to be done, so there's an opening there. And then the other part of it is, well, we can't pay Joe Flacco all this money because we're still on the hook for Tua. Now, Tua's retired. Maybe we can spread out that money differently, like Bobby Bonilla or something, and do something like that. Maybe they'll make some kind of special contract,
right.
But they have to pay Tua. They can't get out of that contract. So I think what's going to have to happen is Joe Flacco has to realize, what do you want? Do you want to keep playing? Do you want to win? Do you want as much money as possible? There is a reality here where he's got awareness to know I'll take less money, and a team has awareness to say, look, we got 2 more good years and a fairly decent player. Not great, but better than most. He's better than a lot of other quarterbacks. He's probably a top 20 quarterback in football right now. He's going to be 40. That scares people. So there's a lot of factors there, but if the right conditions happen, I think he could sign for $20 million on a team that could win and really elevate his status.
I like it.
All right. Let's get into questions from Patreon. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/Zach Schomler. It's $1 a month. You can donate more if you want to, but $1 a month gives you access to submit questions on Patreon. I'm not on Patreon to make money. I'm on Patreon to filter out people that suck, honestly. $1 a month is basically nothing. It allows you to write into the show, and it makes me know, hey, you're serious about writing in, you care, you're invested a little bit, and it helps me filter out all the nonsense because I get so many questions and so many commenters. Will writes in today, says, hey, HVAC Zach and the Jag. Is any team in the NFC West actually good or bad for that matter? Through 5 weeks, the Seahawks are 3-2 with a first-year coach. That sounds good, but They've played a soft schedule and just lost to a bad Giants team. The 49ers, on the other hand, are 2-3 and feel like they're better than their record, but now they're 0-2 in the division, which could spell trouble down the road. The Cardinals are 2-3 and should be a bad team because of the terrible defense, but they just pitched a second half shutout over the Niners. Lastly, I'm pretty sure the Rams are the worst team in the division, but that's largely due to injuries. That's turned into more of a ramble than a question, but where do you see these four teams headed now that we have 5 weeks of data on them? At first, I wanted to talk about Arizona beating the 49ers, but then I was like, let's just read the question and talk of a broader conversation about the division.
Yeah.
What do you say to this question, Nathan?
I think that there is one very good team. I still don't think the Niners are a very good team. They're working through some things, clearly. Offensively, defensively, Christian McCaffrey being missing, unable to score in the red zone, 9 for 22 in terms of converting for touchdowns. They've got some things to work out, but to me, all of those things are solvable. Up next, I think you have the Rams and the Seahawks that are just above average teams. Just above average teams, I'd say, who kind of any given week, they can beat just about anybody in the NFL. You're right, the Rams are a little bit beat up, but Matt Stafford back there, hopefully you get Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua back soon. They start to get healthy. They could go on a tear at the end of the season. Arizona Cardinals, they're going to continue to be a tough out, but I still think the bottom of that division, they're going to keep getting better, but they just don't have the personnel to match up on the two deep. And especially when you get deeper into the season, guys do get dinged up. You start to have a few more injuries. You got film on you. It's going to get tougher and tougher for the Cardinals to be that difficult team to beat, but they're also going to get better. So where's that going to kind of sit? I kind of skipped past the Seahawks there, but they're just, to me, too inconsistent of a team. Offensively, they haven't quite found the perfect rhythm. Defensively, again, they've got two great corners. I don't think they have a stellar pass rush or safeties, so they're going to need some work on both sides of the ball, but they have enough talent on the roster to win games. So pecking order, let's just put it in a list. You got Niners, you got Rams, you got Seahawks, and just underneath them, you got the Cardinals. However, that gap between 3 and 4 is not very big. It's not very big right now.
The Cardinals play at Green Bay next weekend, and then the Chargers the following weekend, both two teams that run the football really well. I hate to break it to you, the Cardinals are going to be 2-5 in 2 games from now. They're going to get blown out by the Packers and Chargers, or even not blown out. They're not going to beat them. I'm impressed with the win. I don't know what to make of this win over the 49ers, but it's a really banged up. Like, there are 2 wins this year. They beat the Rams and the 49ers, 2 teams that are really banged up and not themselves.
Yeah.
I don't buy into the Cardinals at all. I don't think any of these teams are really Super Bowl contenders. The only team that has a shot to change that is the 49ers, that they can get healthy.
Yes.
But right now, I'm not. The question is the NFC West any good or bad for that matter? I think they're all just okay. They're all fine. The Cardinals they're going to put up a fight every week. They're not going to win a lot of games, but they're honestly, I've been impressed with the Cardinals' ability to hang around in games and put up points here and there. They play good defense from time to time. It seems like they pick their moments. It's kind of weird and random when the Cardinals play good or not. Mm-hmm. Seattle they're going to make noise, but they're not a Super Bowl contender. The Rams are really banged up. The 49ers are the only team here that's got a shot to win a Super Bowl. The question is, can they stay healthy? And I don't think the answer to that is yes either. So none of these teams are a top 3 team in the NFC, in my opinion. I think the best in the NFC right now is probably Detroit, Green Bay, or Atlanta, followed by Philly pretty close after that. And then Minnesota's in that conversation as well. The 49ers they're not anywhere in the top 5, even probably in the NFC. Mm-hmm. So I don't think the NFC West is bad. They can make noise, but they're also not great. They're kind of just average and okay.
Yeah, the thing with the Niners is I'm going back to that 2022 year where they also kind of had a tough start. Let's see, they went 4-4 to start the year. So kind of the same. They were winning some games. They weren't winning other games. Things weren't super spectacular. And then what happened? They made the trade and they got Christian McCaffrey in the building, right? And he's the guy that absolutely changes things for you. So that's why I'm optimistic that they'll start to get things together. Even if Christian McCaffrey doesn't come back until much later in the season, I think they'll start to settle into their rhythm. They had Trent Williams doing a little bit of a holdout. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk is playing himself back into the offense. And just how they lost last week, their second half possessions, interception, turnover on downs, fumble, and interception. And that's all 4 of your possessions in the second half. I mean, all they have to do is turn one of those drives into a field goal, and we're probably talking about this game a little bit differently. So that's why I still think that they are a very good team. To me, they're still a Super Bowl contender under the guys that Christian McCaffrey is going to come back. And then all the other teams are just, let's see what team shows up this week.
Justin writes in on Patreon, kind of making fun of me, saying, you quoted me, Zach, college football week 5 doesn't have any good games. And then college football week 5 says, hold my beer. And there are 5 top 15 upsets.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. And let me just take you through what happened in college football this weekend. Number 25, Texas A&M beat number 9, Missouri 41-10. Surprising. Great win there. Unranked SMU beat number 22, Louisville 34-27. Unranked Vanderbilt beat the number 1 team in the country, Alabama, 40-35. Unranked Arkansas beat number 4 Tennessee 19-14. Unranked Washington beat number 10 Michigan 27-17. And unranked Minnesota beat the number 11 team in the country, USC, 24-17. I want to say, first of all, my reaction to this is I love it. It's fun. It's awesome. It makes me really glad we've got a 12-team playoff where teams can have a loss or two now, and it's okay. Alabama can lose to Vanderbilt, and they're still in the mix. They're still a playoff team. I don't think USC, they lost 2 games now. They're probably out, but you can survive a loss. It's not the end of the world, and I think that's good for college football. I really like that. What do you make of the upsets this weekend?
Yeah, I think they're fun, but to me, it takes away the sting of what that upset used to mean. Because like you said, now Vanderbilt didn't just completely crush Alabama's title hopes. Because that loss on your schedule, when it comes time to, it's a one-loss team. Oh, they lost to Vanderbilt. They're out, right? So now that sting and that joy, I feel like doesn't quite hit the same. It certainly does for Vanderbilt and the teams that pulled off those upsets, but it doesn't quite mean as much. Now, on the flip side, like you said, there's going to be an opportunity for those teams to redeem themselves for the remainder of the year and be rewarded for playing good football after a loss. So that's exciting. You still have that opportunity to take those mistakes, improve, and make yourself a better team throughout the course of the year. That's all good and well. What I also think is interesting to note is there's a lot more talent in college football right now, not just because kids are training younger and they have these 7-on-7s and these different passing camps, and kids are, in theory, getting more reps before getting into college. But because now I don't have to sit behind Keely Ringo at Georgia for 2 years, I can just dip off to a Big Ten school or another SEC school and play right away. So now there's a lot more talent spread out, which is just creating a more variable. It's putting more variables into college football, in addition to the fact that now these great teams, they're still going to be great at the top, but that 2 deep and 3 deep isn't as great. So now their injuries, those mean a little bit more also. So it's all kind of turning itself into somewhat of an NFL sort of implications. But yeah, it's exciting. And the Ducks are going to beat Ohio State by 30 next week, and I'll be there to watch it.
Oh, man, I pray for you. You're going to be so sad next weekend.
Bro, Jeremiah Smith is going to go bananas. He's so good.
I think when it comes to Bama, you're coming off a huge victory over Georgia, a big emotional victory. You're riding high, and it's easy to take a team for granted, which I think we've seen this happen even in the Nick Saban era at Alabama, where you have a huge win, and you fall asleep at the wheel against a team that maybe you shouldn't lose to. In fact, some of the quotes, like Nick Saban had a quote recently talking about Alabama, where I think it was like September 24th, I think, earlier this year. He said, when you go to Vanderbilt, it's tough because you just have more fans in the stadium than they do. And man, I don't know. I'm sure that was played a lot throughout the week leading up to the Alabama game. It's also interesting, by the way, Nick Saban's become in retirement from coaching, he's still the figurehead of Alabama football. Yes. It's so funny to me. It's like, wow, it's he's not the coach, but he's the guy who speaks for Alabama. But I think you had to almost put Alabama on watch for this to happen. Whenever you have a big emotional victory, you're riding high. You play a team like Vanderbilt. You're like, that's an easy win, right? It's just Vanderbilt. And then they get you.
You sleep through the film sessions. You're not as focused during walkthroughs. Like, we're going to show up. We're going to whoop their ass. I'm probably only going to play, the first half, and then I'm going to be resting. Man, I wonder what we're going to do once we get back to Tuscaloosa. Are there any parties going on tonight? All that kind of stuff happens when you know you're about to roll up on a team. And like you said, you come off of a great win like that, and then, they just laid an egg.
I want to talk about another college football program, one in particular, one that we have talked a lot about. It's Miami.
Don't make me do it.
I don't want to talk about Miami because of their title hopes or because of their coach. I want to talk about their quarterback, specifically Cameron Ward. I've watched Miami 2 weeks in a row now have really, really incredible fourth quarter comebacks. Against Virginia Tech, they were down in the fourth quarter. You and I were texting. You're like, hey, Miami season is over. And, Cameron Ward came back and won that game. Then, Saturday we're texting and near the end of the third quarter, Miami was down 25 points. And then in the fourth quarter, they were down 38-18. And you're like, it's over, man. Sorry, bro. And I watched Cameron Ward lead another comeback and get another fourth quarter victory. Miami, after being down 38-18 with 14 minutes left, honestly, less than 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter, down 20, came back and won 39-38. To me, what stands out is a lot of drops from the Miami offense. Honestly, a lot of, like, as much as they're doing well, they could be doing even better. But the real true thing about Miami is when you watch them, their quarterback's obviously a superstar. I think the best quarterback in college football, hopefully a Heisman Trophy candidate, maybe the winner. But he feels inevitable. I feel like I'm watching a college version of Patrick Mahomes where he's got the ball, they're down, and I'm like, man, the same way when Patrick Mahomes gets the ball in the fourth quarter down a touchdown, you're like, oh man, he's going to do it again. That's how I felt watching live. The minute they started getting momentum in the fourth quarter, I was like, Cam's going to do it. He's going to do it. And he did. And it was like, man, I feel like I'm watching a Mahomes-esque performance where they got the ball 32-38, needing a touchdown to win. And I knew just it's going to happen. They were converting fourth downs. They converted a huge, it was like 3rd and 20, and he threw a touchdown. I mean, there were so many moments where they're behind the sticks, it shouldn't happen, and he converted and made it happen. 3rd and 20 from the 25-yard line, he threw for a 23-yard first down. There was a 3rd and goal from the 18-yard line, he threw a touchdown. Like, seems like no matter what situation he finds himself in, Cameron Ward finds a way to overcome it and do well. And I'm impressed. I love the kid. I think he's the best quarterback in college football. Should be the number 1 pick in the draft. What do you make of Cameron Ward and Miami football? And are you frustrated as a guy who hates Mario Cristobal?
I'm frustrated that Cal couldn't close it out. How I see it, there was a by the letter to the T targeting call that hit Mendoza in the head.
Yes.
That completely would have changed because then Cal has the ball and game's essentially over.
Yeah,
right?
let me acknowledge this. A missed targeting call allowed Miami to stay alive in the game. That's a fact.
Correct. Also fact, illegal lineman downfield or whatever the call is, lineman downfield on that touchdown pass because Cam Ward had held it just a bit too long in that run pass option. Obviously, touchdown result, it wasn't called, but that lineman was in the end zone. 2 of them were.
I think the rule is different. I think it's 5 yards in college, but don't quote me on that.
Do they get you at 5 yards in college?
I think it's 1 in the NFL. It might be 5 in college, but don't quote me on that. You're right, though. There were some weird missed calls. Like they were the beneficiary of some funky stuff for the refs on Saturday.
Yeah. So I'm going to give some praise here. Cam Ward is special. I don't think he's the best quarterback in college football. I think he's the best playmaker in college football right now. My concern is for that Miami offense, and I said this in week 1 and week 2, there's not a lot of plays that are happening inside the structure of that offense. It is frequently Cam Ward dropping back. Nothing's there. Okay, let me go out there and make a play. And a cat only has 9 lives. And eventually you're going to get caught, and it's going to catch up to you when you play these, to me, very, very subpar teams back-to-back weeks, and you are escaping by the whistle of the referee right now, right? Because it was almost a touchdown the previous week against Virginia Tech, and then you kind of maybe or maybe not get bailed out this last week. I want to see Cam Ward more within the structure of the offense, making plays, which is why I don't think he's the best quarterback in college football. Again, he's the best playmaker in
But you're
college
wrong.
football right now.
You're wrong. I mean this so respectfully.
How am I wrong? How is he not the best playmaker? He's not. It's like, is Lamar Jackson the best quarterback in the NFL?
No.
No, but he's the best playmaker, right? And nobody can disagree with that.
But
It's the same thing in college football right now with Cameron Ward.
I think you're missing. You're right. He makes a lot of plays outside of structure. He's also executing the offense at a high level. There have been so many moments that the 3rd and 20 from the 25-yard line was a perfect read and a great decision. The 3rd and goal on the 18-yard line is a great read, executing inside the offense. He's beating blitzes. He's changing the plays the line of scrimmage to account for man coverage or a zero blitz and beating the blitz with a throw. Like he's doing great stuff outside of structure and extending plays, but he's also, I think actually I would argue, elevating the play calling by doing little subtle things at the line of scrimmage and going to the right spot almost every time when it matters most. I think you're not giving him enough credit, and maybe it's just because you haven't watched enough. I mean that respectfully. Like there are so many moments inside the structure of the offense where he's making the right adjustment at the line and beating a defense by recognizing what they're doing and making a call. And that's not a guy just making plays outside of structure. That's a guy knowing the system, reading the defense, and making an adjustment. That's working fantastically within the system. So I just think you're wrong. I just disagree completely.
I'm going to watch that game film back and look for it. But again, to me, and this is what I texted you, when Cam Ward was dropping back in that first half and early in that second half, he was dropping back and just looking, right? And looking and seeing are two different things to me. There were balls that he wasn't letting go, balls that he was overthrowing, underthrowing, in the dirt, scrambling to make plays, again, outside of the structure of the offense. To me, that's what I saw, and maybe I should have, not turned on Lord of the Rings Return of the King Extended Edition and finished out the end of that game. I thought it was in hand for Cal.
Yeah.
But I will watch back with an earnest heart and see what he is doing at the line of scrimmage, because truthfully, I am not seeing what you're seeing, and maybe it's because I'm not looking for it, right? You're more of the quarterback guy, so I'll defer to you on that. But I don't see him changing plays at the line of scrimmage or making any sort of major adjustment that I wouldn't expect from a high-level quarterback.
I encourage you, and I don't blame you for turning on Lord of the Rings, right? The game looked like it was over. I thought it was over too, but I was like, I actually maniacally was with Molly. I was like, you know what? It's end of the 3rd quarter. Like, let's just see what's going on here. And I started the game down 25 and watched from down 25 on and was like, oh my gosh, like the plays he's making are great. And go watch some of the reads and some of the throws he's making in 3rd and long and 4th and long. And really like getting rid of the football and doing the right stuff. Here's my question to you. And I mean this kind of in a silly way. Like, you say he's not the best quarterback in college football. Then who is? Like, who's a better quarterback right now in college football than Cameron Ward? I think, is it Jackson Dart? Is it Quinn Ewers? Like, you better have a good argument, because I can't even think of another human right now in college football playing better than Cameron Ward.
Yeah, I'd say between Ewers and Dart, I would take either of those two if I am starting an NFL franchise.
Why? Right? I just disagree. I think that's completely wrong.
I just think that they are better deliverers of the football from the pocket. Again, not to say that Cam Ward can't be great. I just have the opinion that I currently do based off of what I've seen. And right, maybe I'll look at some film and maybe I'll change my mind. But again, what I see is a great athlete back there making plays. And again, I'm not knocking Cam for not being able to throw the football. It's very clear that he can throw a great football. He can deliver it on time. I just don't know if I see enough of him consistently winning a football game from the pocket.
Yeah, I just disagree. I think you're wrong. And then we've talked about him from the pocket, but let's also acknowledge how special he is, where they were in a bind on defense. Justin Wilcox's defense had a problem where they would play zone coverage and he would pick apart the zone coverage. So they switched to man, and he'd either beat them throwing or they couldn't account for him running the football. So everyone would take off downfield and he'd run for like a 24-yard touchdown. So they just, no matter what the defense did in the second half of that game for Cal, he made them wrong. And that's a incredible weapon. Like, that's like, man, what do you do if you're Cal's
defense? He made
defense?
a lot of great plays as a playmaker.
But he was beating zone coverage, man. I'm telling you, there were a lot of plays in the pocket. He's throwing to Restrepo, right? And beating throwing back shoulder seam balls to beat cover 4, beat quarters, like finding that spot between the safety and the corner. Like he really was picking apart that defense in that fourth quarter. And I don't know how you look at it any other way. Watch it. I implore you.
I will
It's
watch
really
with
impressive.
I will watch with an earnest heart.
I think before we get into the rest of the Patreon questions, do you want to talk about next week in the football world?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Next week is frankly like kind of a crappy week in the NFL, in my opinion. Like you've got Thursday Night Football, it's the 49ers in Seattle. That's not terrible, but I'm not that excited about that. Monday Night Football is the Bills and Jets. Sunday Night Football is awful. It's the Bengals and the Giants. I think there's two really good games that are not primetime games, Washington and the Ravens, and Detroit at Dallas. So like we can talk about that if you want, but to me, like there's not a lot of exciting, like I'm sure the games will, prove themselves to be more interesting. There's always games you don't expect that grab your attention. I'm not worried we're going to have a lot to talk about next weekend, but I certainly don't look ahead to NFL Week 6 and go, what a great slate of games. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I think Jaguars Bears is interesting. We talked about it 2 weeks ago. The Bears had some games coming up where the defenses were weaker, an opportunity for them to get going on offense. We saw them blow the doors off of Carolina. We saw them blow the doors off of, oh my goodness, can't even remember. But they've got another opportunity here with the Jaguars to beat a team that maybe has some life after last week. We'll see, but again, isn't strong defensively. You got the Buccaneers and the Saints. That is probably the most interesting game, right up there with the Ravens and the Commanders. Division-wise, with the Saints and the Buccaneers, that's interesting. But just how does Jaden Daniels stack up against his comp right now of Lamar Jackson? That to me is super interesting. I actually think Browns and Eagles are interesting. And the reason I think that is because of the sour taste that we have of the Eagles. They had a bye week. I'd like to think A.J. Brown is coming back. I'm not quite sure. But how do they come back after being heavily criticized? You get a week off, rest up, get healthy. And then Browns, what do they look like against this team? And I know we said we weren't going to talk about them next week, but do the Browns show any sign of life this week, backs against the wall? And then kind of same deal for Philly. What do they look like after being heavily criticized over their performance to start the season?
Yeah, we might talk about Cleveland on our way to talking about Philadelphia, I guess, right? But I think their season's over.
And then then Bills Jets. Yeah, Bills Jets is going to be exciting.
Yeah. 4 teams have a bye week. Kansas City, the Rams, the Dolphins, and the Vikings all do not play next week during NFL Week 6. I think it's I think the Vikings don't need a bye week. I think they actually would love it if their season kept going a little longer because they're hot and playing really well right now.
Yep.
But they got a week to prepare for a huge game against Detroit 2 weeks from now. So the NFL it's okay. Like it's not, I think the primetime games are kind of weak. I'm sure the Seattle 49ers is actually be a great game on Thursday. That's a fun matchup. It's a division game. By the way, I don't know if you've noticed this, but watching Thursday night, I don't know if it's the streaming quality or the cameras, but it's like beautiful to look at. I mean, just, oh my gosh, it like visibly, I've always known that for example, there's like a unique color to the Buccaneers helmets, for example, but watching it on Thursday Night Football with, again, I don't know if it's camera quality or streaming quality, but it looks like it stands out. It pops. It looks incredible with that Amazon Prime stream. Feels like the best place to watch football right now. I don't know if you've noticed that.
I haven't noticed it in particular. I'm also rocking a relatively old TV out there, so I'm not sure if I'm getting the best possible picture. It's okay.
Yeah, well, yes. I feel that. I mean, I've got an old TV too, and
I'll look for the quality.
I don't know. I think it's Amazon. I think it's the Amazon Prime app. Maybe I'm not really sure, but I'm like, wow, it looks so much more beautiful than any other place I've watched football this year. Here's what's exciting about next weekend. The NFL is okay. College football is going to deliver, I think, a really, really fun weekend. You've got
that's be delicious,
dude. Not only number 1 Texas at number 18 Oklahoma, so the Red River rivalry, which I just every year is awesome. And even though Texas is way better, I just expect Oklahoma to challenge them and make that interesting as they always do.
The Red River rivalry.
The game, though, actually, I think there's 2 more great games. We'll get to the best one in a minute, but number 9 Ole Miss plays number 13 LSU at LSU. I believe it's a night game. Don't quote me on that. Let's find out. But looking at it, night games at LSU are incredible. Both teams have a 1-loss record so far. So that game is 4:30. So a night game, 7:30 kickoff time, East Coast time at LSU. That's going to be awesome and really, really fun. So Ole Miss LSU battle between 1-loss teams.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4 Penn State plays at USC, who's unranked, but that's still really interesting. I think USC is more capable. Probably got a chance to knock off Penn State, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then the game of the weekend has to be, to me, number 2 Ohio State at number 3 Oregon, and probably Ohio State's going to run away with this game, probably, and make a statement. But I'm personally very excited. I think you'll be there in person, and I feel bad for you. I think you're going to cry watching your team lose. But I just think it's a special weekend in college football. What say you?
Yeah, it is going to be a great weekend. I will say I don't think Oregon and I don't think Penn State are the 3rd and 4th best team in the country. It kind of happens early in the season when other teams lose games, but there's nothing I've seen from Penn State that's made me feel, oh, wow, they are ridiculously elite. I know that their defense is good, but I haven't been impressed with Drew Allar. I think I was talking about
Drew
him.
Aller. Yeah.
Aller.
Yeah.
I just haven't been super impressed with his production, and I feel like he got a lot of hype in the preseason, and even I had some high expectations for him. But you said it, you weren't impressed with him, and now I'm starting to see why. Oregon versus Ohio State. I think after week 1 and 2, I would have told you that Ohio State wins by 40. I think this ends up being a possession and a half game. I think this stays within 10 points. I do think it swings in favor of Ohio State, but I think Oregon's defense has grown up, especially in the trenches. I think they've been playing much, much better in that front 7. Obviously, Ohio State is a completely different beast, not just in the Big Ten, but in college football as a whole. Fortunately, the game is in Autzen. If you guys haven't been there, it gets loud. It's crazy. It's one of the toughest places to play. So that's in Oregon's favor.
It's the return of Chip Kelly, by the way, too. It's Chip Kelly goes back to Oregon.
My concern is Dylan Gabriel's got a lot of big numbers right now. I don't think that he has played the best football yet. And again, like statistically, you look at the box score and you think, wow, Oregon, Dylan Gabriel, completion percentage, yards. So, to me, it hasn't looked as clean and as efficient as things could. And also, I just worry about them running the football. Ohio State's defense has been so stout, and that's my concern, is that Oregon offense getting going. Man, yeah, like I said, I think it's about a 10-point game.
You know,
I've talked myself into a 10-point game. I'm not sure if I believe it yet.
I think it's I think Ohio State wins like 42-24, something like that. I really maybe 35-14, like a 35-13, a touchdown and 2 field goals from Oregon. Like I think Ohio State's ability to run the ball with Quinshon Judkins is going to be incredible, and really plus then that receiver Jeremiah Smith. I don't know, man. I think it's
Smith and Emeka Egbuka. I think Carnell Tate is going to come back healthy. Who else do they have in there? They got Brandon Ennis, who got a little bit of burn while Carnell Tate was out. Like, Ohio State is so deep at wide receiver. And all these dudes that I just talked about, all from South Florida, like, they're so good.
Well, they might not need to throw the football, though. They might run the ball for like 400 yards for real. I just think that they're really gifted up front, and Oregon has been unimpressive. Like, they almost lost to Idaho. Like, they remember what
Alabama just lost to Vanderbilt.
I guess.
Sometimes you just ain't got it.
Am I making this up? Didn't Junty, that really incredible running back at Boise State, run for like 286 yards or something on Oregon? Did I make that up in my head?
It might not have been 286, but it certainly wasn't. It certainly wasn't a little amount. Let me go to this box score real quick. He had 192 yards.
How many touchdowns?
3 touchdowns.
So does Quinshon Judkins or Genty have a better day against Oregon? I'm not sure yet. I worry Quinshon Judkins has a better day.
I don't think Quinshon Judkins will. And hear me out. This is tinfoil hat, and you guys got to hang with me here.
He's a Duck fan, by the way.
What? Yes, I am a Duck fan, diehard. You guys see the water bottle I drink out of every show. Ryan Day, sometimes, and I know he's got Chip back there, a guy that he respects and maybe can reel him in. Ryan Day sometimes forgets about the run. passing the football is very, very pretty. And when you've got receivers and weapons like you do on the outside, sometimes you forget to feed the beast. I'm concerned, Ryan. No, I'm not concerned. I think Ryan Day might outthink the room. And all of a sudden, they're going to throw 40 plus times. They're going to run it maybe 18 or 19, a split between Judkins and Travion Henderson. And it's not going to be as effective as we thought. We'll come back and we'll see if that's the case. But Ryan Day sometimes can outthink the room with those sort of things, as history has shown. I'm curious to see what he does.
Against Iowa, they had 40 carries, right, to 25 passes. Against Michigan State, who they beat 38-7, they ran the ball 35 times and threw the ball 40 times. So now that's what Julian's saying in the game. They're up by a lot. And these are also blowouts. So not a great sample size. But I think this game could be a blowout.
Dog. Like as soon as oh my goodness, why am I blanking on his name? As soon as Will Howard's out, Julian's saying dog. And he was supposed to go to Alabama, and he flipped.
You know, there's one more game that I think is really interesting. I've talked about Pittsburgh with coded language. It's a place I love. Number 22 ranked 5-0 Pittsburgh hosts Cal. Look, I don't point out games like this very often. I think that's given Cal's performance last week, given Eli Holstein, the quarterback of Pittsburgh, how he's playing. I think it's actually a good game. I don't know if Pittsburgh walks away with the win there. I think they're kind of vulnerable. They haven't played anybody really this year. But Cal's defense against a pretty good freshman quarterback at Pittsburgh is going to be a fun game. And I think an interesting matchup that is easy to not pay attention to nationally if you don't know what you're looking for.
Sure. Who's that quarterback in Pittsburgh?
Eli Holstein, I believe.
Eli Holstein. Okay. Yeah, I don't know a whole lot based on that defensive performance we saw from Cal in the 3 quarters that they were checking Miami. It could be an interesting matchup.
Eli Holstein has 15 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, and then another 3 rushing touchdowns. He's been ACC Freshman of the Week like 3 or 4 times in the 4 games they've played. Like he's almost every week. I feel like he's got another ACC Freshman of the Week award, and you're like, wow, Eli Holstein is crushing it right now at Pittsburgh. So yeah, man. I got a couple more questions from Patreon.
Let's take a look.
And by the way, I've been clearing my throat all episode. I apologize to listeners out there. I've been up since 4 a.m. It's been a long day. Work killed me today. It's been very difficult. Josh writes in and says, "Hey guys, Josh, the pronunciation guy here, and I heard your call for help. It's pronounced Chuba Hubbard, not Chuba, but Chuba. No question. Just wanted to say it's only the beginning of October, and I'm already looking forward to next September. Same old Bungles, RTTB. So another correction for you, Nathan. I love you. It's Chuba Hubbard, not Chuba Hubbard.
Chuba Hubbard.
You take it with grace. I love you." Gabriel writes in and says, "Hey, Zach, I failed to convince you over the offseason that the new Broncos uniforms were good. But how about these beautiful throwbacks with Pat Surtain getting 2 picks and Bo throwing tremendous touchdowns? I'm just happy. I haven't had anything good to write in about football-wise for years. I'd also like to hear Nate's opinion on the uni redesign." Nathan, I want to throw it to you, but I got to say first, the Broncos throwback uniforms should be their regular home uniforms. And the Falcons throwback uniforms from Thursday Night Football last week, the red helmets, the black jerseys, that white.
Were hot.
Dude, the throwback uniforms are better than their current home jerseys. Why are we not doing that? Why are we not just acknowledging, hey, the orange helmet, the blue jersey, the white in Denver is incredible. That's a good look and should be your helmet every week. It should be your uniform every week. Instead, you got back to that weird, crappy, navy blue, ugly thing they got going on. I don't know. I just miss the old uniforms and wish they'd be regular, embraced as the regular uniforms of these franchises. What say you?
I like it, but too much of a good thing is bad. You just
too much of a bad thing is bad, and the Denver Broncos regular jerseys are bad.
I don't think they're that bad.
They're not good,
but if
they get shown up by these jerseys, man.
The thing is what other combos do you have? Do you go orange on orange creamsicle? Because then you look like those weird Color Rush uniforms. So are you always going with the white pants? White pants and that orange top? I'm a big fan. Let's be clear. Those uniforms looked fantastic. I'm just not sure if I want those every single game.
And sorry, let's be clear. Blue helmet, orange jersey. I got it backwards. I'm looking at it right now. I hate the regular navy blue thing that got going on. It's just so boring and corporate and like, I don't know, man. It's like, it's not exciting at all. It inspires nothing in me. It's just the most thing I can think of. It's a sterile corporate uniform. It's like, ugh, this could be so much better. I'm just not inspired by it.
Yeah,
At least
I
the
don't.
Falcons' regular uniforms look good.
The navy with the orange accent, that regular doesn't look good. The orange with the navy accent, I think looks good. If they did that for home and then they just had their white jerseys, I'd be okay. But yeah, I don't love that all navy. That all navy to me doesn't look good.
Yeah. Final write-in today. Gabe writes in, says, and Gabriel versus Gabe, they're literally different people. Gabe says, hello to HVAC Zach and the Jag. I just wanted to return and tell you, thank you for helping me with feeling better about my move. Zach, when you said that sometimes in life you got to do the responsible thing and not the fun thing, that really stuck with me. This is the definition of that, and it did make me feel a lot better about what I'm doing. I appreciate you bringing it up with Nathan and all of your help as well, Jag, although I sadly did move with a girlfriend. I also wanted to say that Gladiator is my dad's favorite movie.
Hell
So
yeah.
definitely a great choice. Also, I've got a couple small questions, and I think we can answer all of them, actually. We got time here.
Yeah.
Number one, does Nathan have a favorite NFL team? He loves to hate on other teams, but hasn't talked about a favorite outside of Oregon. Nathan, do you have a favorite NFL team? I think we're both from the Portland area, Vancouver, Washington. There is no local NFL team. I'd never embrace Seattle.
No.
Do you have a favorite NFL team? I don't, but do you?
My favorite NFL team, it used to be the Atlanta Falcons. This was the Michael Vick, Warwick Dunn, TJ Duckett, Algie Crumpler, Roddy White, Michael Jenkins. Like that team was my favorite. And then Michael Vick went to jail. I had to tear down the fat head and basically box up all of my my Falcons / Michael Vick stuff and put it away. And then after that, I never really became like an NFL fan of like a certain team. I always loved my Ducks. But more importantly to me, I just root for good football and good players. I love seeing players, following players like Stephon Diggs when he was at Maryland. I was telling everybody I could he was going to be a dog. Seeing teams like Alabama and LSU continue and Ohio State churn out these elite level wide receivers. Looking at what Iowa does and a lot of those Big Ten teams do, producing offensive linemen, just kind of looking at it from that perspective and then following them into the NFL and just rooting for their success is the way I prefer to do it. There's just not as much, I don't have any passion for an NFL team like I did for the Ducks. Like I was going to Duck games before I could walk, Duck gear on before I could probably breathe. I don't know. So that's like where the passion comes from. Pops went there. I went there. So to have another team to have that kind of fandom, I don't think there's room in my life for it. My heart certainly couldn't take it.
The next question, I actually read it wrong. I thought he asked how you and I met, but he says, and Zach, when are we going to hear the story of how you and your girlfriend met? Anyway, love the show. Keep up the good work. I'm not going to lie to you. The story of how I met Molly's, it was a Hinge date. And it was just, I was at work. I was like, hey, do you want to get drinks tonight? She said, yes. We went on a date. It went really well. And it was kind of great from there. But I thought the question was how you and I met, Nathan. Let's tell that story instead, because me and Molly's story is pretty boring. It's Hinge. If you're looking for a serious relationship, 10 out of 10, recommend Hinge. It's, I think, the place to be to find, it's the best dating app to find a real relationship, in my opinion. But you and I met.
Use code HVACZAC for at least 20.
I wish. You and I met, I think, at camps growing up, right? Like, technically, the first time we ever met, although I don't think you remember me, is at the NFL camp at Parkrose High School. I was still at David Douglas High School, actually, as a sophomore, but it's between our sophomore junior years. We met technically at that, right? You were at that camp, I believe, correct?
With like the John Charles camp?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the rain on that grass at Parkrose.
Man, we went out there and we grinded. There was no doubt.
But after that, we became friends just through training, I think, at doing different camps and being around each other. And we ended up going to rival high schools, but we met before that, ironically. And then I dated someone in your friend group. Like, what's really funny, by the way, I went to Skyview High School. You went to Columbia River. But all of my friends, my girlfriend, my two best friends I still am best friends with today, everyone I hung out with in high school went to our rival high school. And frankly, to this day, I don't really hang out with anyone from my high school football team. In fact, I saw his name's Marcus. I'm not going to say any more than that, but I saw Marcus the other day at the 24-hour fitness, like down the street.
No
And like
way.
I was on the phone at work, and I gave him like a little hug and fist bump, and he kept going into the building, and I was like, all right. And he never reached out to me. I never saw him again. But I saw like even like the number one receiver from high school, and just didn't even like it meant nothing to me. I felt bad, but I'm like, we're not friends. I don't really care. It was like interesting.
Yeah, I've bumped into him and his girl a few times back when I was in Portland. They're doing well.
Yeah. But we met through just camps. And then again in high school, like I hung out with you, I think, more after games than my own football team, ironically.
Yeah. The part that I feel like really connected us though was the articles that I believe it was Dirk Knudsen did on us. Like he did a write up, and we both kind of got featured in and around the same time. And then we had another piece, I think, in the Columbian, talking about just how we were both, in theory, undersized, but how we were both not managing. We were both putting up crazy numbers in high school, and then, looking at opportunities to play past that. And I think that's what kind of connected us, as we had that interview. I think it was at Columbia River too.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, we were both sitting down there, answering the questions kind of in tandem. And then from there, when I came back to play at Portland State, you were one of the only guys still locally that was throwing the rock. And we started going out, running routes and just doing it old school, nothing fancy, just out there, a couple cones and a couple fellas wanting to get better. And I think that's really where our relationship started to grow.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, the way the Columbian wrote articles back then, when they did the season preview for a team, they would kind of pick one player they thought was like the best player on the team and highlight that guy. And for my team, that was me, and for your team, that was you. It's funny to look back on those days though, throwing on the grass at Columbia River, like when you were like, man, I wasn't even in college. I was like working at a car wash. Like my brother had died. I was kind of just a washout. I didn't know what I was doing with my life at all. But you wanted someone to throw the football to you, and I was like, dude, I'll come. Like, sure, I love throwing the football.
Yeah.
No aim for me other than just I love throwing a football around. But you were actually trying to get better and work on stuff, and I'm like, I'll throw a high, what do you call them? Moon balls to you to work on practicing that stuff like that.
Yeah.
I just forgot about that. That's so funny.
Yeah, it was a great time. It was one of my favorite summers for sure that time. Yeah, I guess question, back to you guys. Do you want my high school highlight tape? Totally kidding. We don't need to unearth that. I shouldn't have even brought that. Dude, we don't need that unearthed.
Have you ever seen mine from my senior year? And at my last play, my highlight tape is when I threw the touchdown pass over Holden against you my senior year. And I threw the touchdown pass to Jeremiah for the game winner to beat you guys. And I'm running and I jump over Holden. And I like talk smack down to him as he's like laying on the turf. I'm sure you guys made fun of him on film the next day for that, right?
No, we didn't watch film, bro. We didn't watch film. Of course, we didn't even see that. But we did talk about it happening because we all saw it happen live. I'm still salty about that game. They just didn't give me the football. I didn't get the football.
You got a lucky one our junior year, so
it wasn't lucky. It wasn't lucky.
I threw the game-winning touchdown pass against you 2 years in a row, and one of them counted, and one of them didn't end up working out for me.
We got ourselves into field goal position. We fake allowed the field goal to be blocked, and then we picked it up and scored. And
I'm
won
just
the game.
telling you, I threw a game-winning touchdown pass against you guys with like a minute left 2 years in a row, and only one of them ended up winning. So I'm still salty about that.
And here we are.
Yeah. Anyways, I love you, man. That's all I got today. Anything I'm missing? Anything else we should talk about?
No, I don't think anything else. You guys let me know what the score is going to be between Ohio State and Oregon, and we'll we'll settle up those we'll settle up those debts come next week.
What's the worst case scenario there? Is it 49-10? Is that even possible? Is that on the table at all?
Worst case scenario, I feel like, is 35-7.
If Oregon wins, how do they do it? Like, what does that game look like? They grind out an ugly one. Ohio State has a bunch of turnovers or something. Like, what does it look like if Oregon can find a way to win that football game?
If Oregon wins, it's probably 35-38.
And how do they do it? What has to happen for Oregon to win?
It has to be a solid start. You have to. I think they need 2 touchdowns in the first half for sure. In order to be able to win, they have to keep it within 10 going into the second half. And then at that point, it's, can we get hot and trade blow for blow at that point? And then I think a defensive play is going to be big. Somebody's going to have a pick six or a very, very timely interception. Not just a first quarter random interception doesn't really impact the game, but a fourth quarter, Ohio State's driving, maybe they're at the 30, 35, and then they throw a pick. Like that's going to need to happen. Oregon's going to have to take the ball away at least one more time than Ohio State, and it has to be at a very, very critical time.
I know so many people that are going to be at that game, and I'm not going to lie to you. You're going to laugh at me and make fun of me, but I chose not to go. I just, I'm an introvert, man. I was like, man, I can have JoJo's, the great restaurant we love near my apartment. I can go get JoJo's. I can sit on the couch. Molly works that night. I can watch Ohio State, Oregon, and just be by myself, have my notes, kick my feet up, not have to get like dressed or anything, not be around people at all, no loud people, no drunk people, just enjoy the game by myself. I got offered to go to the game and I said no because that just watching by myself sounded too fun and perfect.
Totally get that. I think have you been to Autzen Stadium before?
I mean, I threw touchdowns in at Oregon camp, but that's it.
Man, it is on game day, especially in those evening games, the sun starts coming down. It's one of the most it's probably my favorite place in the world. I love Autzen Stadium so much. It's just magical. You get there, it's sunk in, it's kind of in the woods a little bit. Man, it's really cool. It's a really cool place. If you get the chance to see it for a game day, definitely go.
Yeah, I've been to Eugene a bunch. I've been to Autzen Stadium a bunch. I've never ever once been to a game day there though, and so that's on the bucket list for sure. But I honestly don't like going to football games. I'm just not a big crowd guy. I get really like insular and uncomfortable. I'm an introverted dude. I like to be home and do my thing.
Here's my deal. I'm like that too a little bit especially when it comes to going to like, everyone's like, oh, do you want to go to the local sports bar and watch this game together? And sometimes I'll do that for the sake of I need to get out of the house and see some friends. But much like you, I love to sit down and watch the chess match that is football games and see what kind of adjustments the coaches are making, see how the players are responding to the coaching, seeing how the players are responding to their own play. And that to me is equally as exciting than, going out and having conversations and having somebody with what I think is a horrible opinion trying to talk my ear off. And I'm like, I just want to watch it. Just let me watch the game. Just let me watch. So I totally feel you on that.
I feel like I can't relax in public. Kind of read, but let's end the show this way. Actually, I want to read you a text message between me and a friend of mine, Tommy. Tommy recently said, and Tommy's a guy I met through the show who I ended up doing HVAC work for, but now we're just like friends. We keep in touch. He texted me, and I mean to watch a game with him, but he texted me the other day saying, want to watch the Seahawks-Lions game with my buddy and I on Monday night? We'll probably go to the satellite room on North Interstate, and it's a very, sports-focused bar with lots of TVs.
Great vibe, by the way.
I said, I'm probably going to pass because Molly was actually really excited to watch Monday Night Football with me and make dinner, but keep me in mind for next time. And I said, we should watch one of the big college games on a Saturday or Sunday sometime. And then here's where it gets really controversial, though. I said, also, I have learned I need lots of warning for social gatherings because I have to emotionally prepare and I'm probably autistic. and what I say that to say, like, I've realized, like, if anyone invites me out, my friend Sean invites me out last minute to stuff all the time. And I'm like, I'm not going to go. You got to give me like 3 weeks warning. If you don't give me like at least a week or two of warning, I'm never going to say yes to you last minute because I don't have time to literally like psych myself up to go. I can psych myself up to go and still be like, I don't want to do it. Like comes the time to leave and I'm like, but I'm happy in my space. I don't want to leave.
Here, new challenge for Zach: one big outing a week, where there's more than
a month, dude.
There's more than 4 people.
Oh man, I have a hard time going to like family get-togethers. I'm like, there's too many people here. I don't like it. I just don't.
I'm that way too.
But anyway, I think it's fun to share that. Guys, that's all I have. I love you, man. Nathan, thanks for your time. Enjoy the Oregon game. Send me pictures. Autzen's cool. And are you flying to Portland or there's no way you're driving, right?
Yeah, I'm going to fly to Portland. I'm actually, exciting part for me, I'm heading down on Thursday, going to catch up with some old buddies, going to go get fitted for my wedding suit, which is really exciting.
Nice.
So we're going to take care of a couple things, and then the cherry on top will be when the Ducks beat Ohio State.
Fun question. You don't have to share this publicly if you want, but is your wedding down there or up here?
down there. It's going to be back home in the greater Portland area.
Oh, down there, meaning up here in Portland. You're down compared to me. Remember, California is south of Oregon.
It will be geographically in the greater Portland area.
There we go. I'm such an asshole. Guys, I love you. I appreciate it. Nathan, thanks for your time, and have a great day. But bam, we are done.